today's guest, our first guest, is Emily Moser.
Which is exciting that we have our first guest.
It is really exciting. And she was someone that we thought of right off the bat. And then she texted us being like, I really want to be on the podcast. And it was perfect because that's exactly what we were thinking. And it's funny because Emily grew up on the same street as us. So she is, you know, we're calling it Grief Street. So she's technically part of Grief Street as well.
Yeah, she's part of that crew. And even though we went to the same elementary school, afterwards we all split up into different middle and high schools. And it's really, I mean, it's a really messed up story of what happened to her. But Emily and I went to the same school where this assault took place.
And so did my husband.
Yes.
Which is kind of crazy.
That is kind of crazy.
Yeah. And so today you're going to hear from Emily, who is a badass. She is a survivor. She is inspiring. She is now a wellness coach, and she's basically taken this horrible experience of being assaulted on her high school campus and been able to turn it into hope and inspiration for other people who are going through hard things. And we felt that way when the conversation ended. Like, it was just a really beautiful conversation. You can tell that she's just done so much work.
Oh, yeah.
Too, you know, like,
she's so willing to talk about the hard stuff and even relive details that are really traumatic. You're going to hear details of a sexual assault that took place while she was on campus at her own high school. It takes a lot of courage to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So we just wanted to let you guys know that this episode does contain some discussion about sexual assault and sexual violence. So our conversation with Emily. Welcome to Grief Street.
Thanks, guys. I'm excited to be here.
We're really happy you're here, and we've known you for a very long time, since we were 5 years old.
Yeah.
And maybe we could start a little bit of how we know each other, and then we can jump into your story.
Sweet.
But I remember meeting Emily. Actually, we will show you that Emily and I also grew up on the same street with Jordy.
Yeah.
So the three of us grew up like 3 houses each away from each other, and Emily were in the middle of us.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. It's kind of funny because she's the only other person really so far that's been on this that it actually was on the same street as us.
Yeah. I literally, which is so funny, Jordy, I have this one memory of you. We were teenagers at this point, but I remember getting out of my car. You can obviously also cut this, but I got out of my car and you're like, oh my God, your boobs are big. And that's literally just like my favorite memory of, like, you were always so excited about all of our growth.
I was just really hyping everyone up.
Yeah.
No, do you know what I remember actually? I remember you gave me one of your headshots.
Oh, I did that to everyone.
And then I hung it up on, I had like a wall of magazines.
And then
of,
Emily's
like, hot
headshot?
boys in my room.
I'm dead.
And then Emily's headshot.
That is hilarious. Did I autograph it?
You did.
Oh.
You autographed it, and like it was up there, and I just loved the confidence, you know?
I feel like I
So
didn't support
embarrassing.
you enough because I don't think I had your headshot.
No,
in
I
my
feel like your
room.
mom didn't
literally-
let you hang things on the walls.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I had given so many weird. That's so weird, but
No, I loved it. I loved how confident you were, and you were just like, and
I'm a famous actress.
yeah, and I like fully embraced it. I was like, you're so famous, I'm gonna put you up on my wall.
love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Good to
And
know.
we had our first sleepover together.
Yeah, and that I canceled the first time. I had
Yeah, there was a little bit of separation anxiety.
Yeah.
But then I was like,
separation anxiety. I lived across the street. That's crazy.
well, we go way
We go
back.
way back.
And then we even went to the same school.
Yes.
And it was a terrible year for me. Like, I was bullied. I'm like, Emily, I need you here. And I have all my journal entries of like,
Aw.
Emily's like the best.
So
And
Emily was there in 4th grade.
yeah.
Well, I was there since 4th grade. When
Got
did
it.
you
So
get
she was
there?
in 5th grade when you were in 4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that when you went there?
Yeah. It was 1 year. And Jordy's husband also went there.
Yeah.
Sure
And
did.
he was like the one
Was
nice
he
Who I went
guy.
to prom.
Yeah,
with.
he was your prom date.
I was his prom.
I'm
date.
sorry. You were his prom date. That's so sweet.
Mhm.
Wow.
I love
I know,
it.
Yeah, we're
crazy.
very
The
like
connections run deep. They
right.
run deep.
very incestuous here. But then I left the school because I was like,
you
didn't
got
like
out.
it.
You got out.
I got like
good.
bullied out of the school.
Yeah. Those were
Um,
sad days.
and then you stayed, and then
Look what happened.
look what happened. So
Yeah.
can you tell us the story of like what the fuck happened?
So I was a sophomore in high school. I was a sophomore in high school. And this was like March. And I was waiting for my dad. My dad was actually going to come to school to go to a college night that we had on campus. It was like the first one. Couldn't tell you how the college night went because I didn't make it.
Yeah.
And it was like after a softball game. So I was waiting on campus for my dad to come studying when and the way that our school was set up was it's kind of all outdoors with like little enclosed courtyards. So I was waiting in one of these enclosed courtyards. And at this point, it's like close to 6 at night.
So, and if it's March, it's still light outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was light out. I was studying and I noticed this guy like looking in the classrooms. And I'm like, that's so weird. And I felt uncomfortable enough that I like texted a friend, there's this guy. I'm scared. I don't know if I was like scared. I was just kind of like, that's weird.
Yeah.
But I wrote it off. Yeah. I wrote it off because like what? I'm 15 years old. Like I have no idea. Like I was just not thinking about anything.
And how old was this man, do you think?
I think was actually like 26 or 27.
At the time.
Yeah,
Okay, so
at the time.
significantly older than you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that
Like
time.
he looked old.
Yeah.
Now looking back, it's like you're a child.
Right.
Right.
But at
You're a
the time-
child and
Yeah.
he was almost 30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I noticed this guy, but I was just like, okay, like whatever, it's fine. Went back to like studying and got curious, like, where is this guy? And I was looking around and I didn't see him. And then I looked behind me and he was like facing the closed classrooms, like probably a yard away from me. So
Okay.
I could see his back. And he was in the courtyard, in the enclosed courtyard.
And was there anyone else at any of the tables around you?
So before this, there were like kids playing farther away. Like I could hear them. And I think at this point they had gone. So I turn around and I see this guy and I'm like, okay, that's so weird. But I just like went back to doing my work. And then
And when you say an enclosed courtyard, does this mean like you needed to be able to like be let in?
no,
Or anybody could get in?
it was like a brick wall, like a short
Got
brick
it.
Okay.
Okay,
Like,
got
and there
it,
was like
got
a little opening.
Got it. And there's no like I'm not as familiar with the school as you and Hank are and Erica because I didn't go there, but is there like a gate around the entire school?
Yes.
Got it.
But it's a public school. So public schools are open to the public after school hours.
After school hours. Okay.
So within like a couple, like literally seconds, maybe minutes, I felt hands over my mouth and the words, shut up, don't say anything. And I think still at first I was like, this is my friend, or like, you know, when someone
Yeah.
covers your
Yeah.
eyes.
Yeah.
And I just honestly, like the details of it are like blurry at this point.
Sure.
Which they like don't tell you that like your memory fails you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like I think the scariest thing of all of this. And like next thing I knew, I was like being pulled by my hair and just like repeatedly punched in the face. And I remember falling down and just saying like I need to get back up and feeling so dizzy. And then like we ended up in these like bushes next to the little mini brick wall, and he was trying to rape me because he was trying to pull off my pants and rip off my underwear with his teeth.
Wow.
At some point he bit me too, which I have no recollection of, on my like shoulder. And yeah, and I had no prior self-defense experience, so I had no idea I wasn't trained for anything like this.
I mean, why would you?
Yeah.
be?
Yeah, which now I am, so
Yeah.
try me. But I just remember like kicking. I was wearing fucking broken sandals.
Oh.
And I just remember kicking repeatedly, yelling out for people, even though he was telling me to shut up. I was just like screaming,
Do you remember
like,
what
help.
you were screaming?
Yeah. What were you
I
saying?
think I was saying like, why are you doing this to me? Like, please stop, help.
Wow.
And eventually he like literally ran away. And I remember like going to the end of the wall to like see like, is he really gone? And I saw him like leave towards the exit of the school. And I just like grabbed my stuff and like immediately called my dad and was like, I've been attacked.
Wow.
And he was like, go find help. He thought I had been like mugged or something.
Got it.
And you were like, I mean, I remember the pictures. You were like,
it was
brutally.
Yeah, it was a very, and I think that's the part that I like when I say like, oh, is sexually assaulted, I like minimize the part of like, I was very brutally attacked. I fractured my eye orbital in 3 spots. I'm pretty sure I had a concussion. I couldn't play sports for weeks.
Yeah.
It was very, it was like really intense. And I also remember, so my dad told me to go get help. And I remember like asking someone to help me find help, like a student. And she looked at me so like she saw a ghost. And I was like, why is she looking at me like that?
You didn't realize.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Until I got to the vice principal. She called the police. Again, something that like just happened. Like I didn't really, it wasn't my choice. And the police were like, you can like clean yourself up. You don't have to like look like that.
Wow.
Or like
Wow.
I just like didn't touch myself. I didn't know what I could like do. And I remember the first thing I did was fix my hair. And when I went to fix my ponytail, like a chunk of hair came out and I freaked out.
Of course.
Which like I'm sure you can imagine like this like attachment to our hair.
Yeah. And you're a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
You know, like that is so horrifying.
Yeah.
So I want to know really quick, like you said, when that girl looked at you, like she had seen a ghost, you had like no idea really why she was looking at you like that.
I hadn't,
What were you like physically feeling?
Oh,
in
that's
that
a great
moment?
question. I think I was like so on like fight or flight, like adrenalized, like fighting for my life. All I could, the biggest thing is like in that moment, I thought I was going to die. So it was like, I either have to fight or I'm going to die.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't remember what I felt like in that moment. I think I was just like, I need to find help. I need to like, I don't know. I think I couldn't even conceptualize what just happened.
Makes sense.
Like,
because it doesn't make sense. It's like still to this day, I feel like it's really hard to make sense of why this happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like when your like, emotions are heightened, I'm still so shocked that you were able to fight.
Yeah.
Like
well,
I
it's
don't
just like
know
not
how.
a choice.
Yeah.
I know.
That's why I get so tired of the whole like strong, courageous narrative. It's like it's life or death.
Or like you don't know what you would do until you're in the circumstance where like you actually have to be fighting to stay alive and protect yourself.
And it's not like you're like, I need to be strong. So like I'm going to fight.
It's not like a conscious choice.
You're just like
your body
instinctual.
takes over.
Instincts just went in.
Which, and for some people, the instinct is don't
freeze.
do anything
Freeze,
because I need to survive to live I need to like get through this so that I can continue on after.
Right.
Right.
So like everyone has their own thing. For me, that was just like, I don't know. I guess I'm fucking fiery. I don't know. I was like, you're not messing with me.
And then you went to the hospital after this.
Yeah. So the whole process, like that happened close to 6 p.m. at night. And I didn't get home till like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So I think like the thing that you don't hear about is how long and grueling the process is after that. And like the re-traumatization of recounting your story to all the detectives multiple times, just like being grilled and like asked a million things. And you're just like, I don't even know what the fuck just happened.
Right.
I just like, it's like a whirlwind. So like, I didn't know what I felt when I was like asking for help, just like keep going, survival.
Yeah. You're in survival mode.
So after the police came, after that, I went to the hospital and I got like, I don't know, an MRI. I always mix up the ones, but like a scan to see where we found out that I had fractured my eye orbital. And I also found out, which I don't know if I've actually ever told people this, but at one point I went to the bathroom and realized that I had peed myself and I have no recollection of when I did that.
Wow.
And so that was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Same thing with like, just like your memory kind of fails you. You like,
Well, your body takes over.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. you're like truly in survival.
So when you saw that, like, what did you think in that moment when you saw like, oh my gosh, I literally peed myself?
I just was like, what? Like, when did that happen?
Yeah.
I like couldn't recollect when that happened. And even like fast forward, going to trial, I remember like talking to the district attorney about like the details of it. And I was like, yeah. And he like was pulling down my pants on my left side or whatever. And she was like, no, it was your right.
Oh my
Like, you told
gosh.
us your right side. And I'm like, no, it was my left. And she's like, you told us literally that day. And so that was like, I don't know my own story.
Right.
The fuck? That like,
That
Yeah,
feels-
it's
that
you keep
feels
saying like
icky.
the memory
Yeah.
part
yeah.
is the hard part for you to not like remember all of those details.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think that's the hardest? Not the hardest, but like one of the harder parts.
I think because at a certain point, it feels like you're just repeating a story that you heard.
Yeah.
'Cause
it
it's like
didn't
an
happen
out-
to you.
Yeah.
but yeah.
Because you have like this out of body experience.
Yeah.
And and so when I like tell the details or I'm like recounting, it's all just because I've repeated it so many times before.
Yeah.
And then you start to doubt that this happened. Like, am I making this shit up?
That's
But
where
then
you
I
start
see-
to like minimize.
Yeah.
Right.
And then I see photos and I'm like, okay, no, this
You're like, no, that
happened.
happened to
Yeah.
me.
Or like things happen, like even driving here, getting off the freeway, being kind of in the same area. I was
Yeah.
like, ooh, being here is a little bit triggering.
Yeah.
Being in this like
This
in
area.
Yeah, in this area.
Yeah.
So then I have like things like that kind of remind me, oh, this like it did happen.
They
It did
ground
happen.
you in the
Yeah,
reality of what you've been through.
exactly.
Yeah.
So then going back, sorry, to like the
Yeah.
hospital, like you're there till 2 a.m.
No, the hospital I wasn't at till 2 a.m. Then I had to get a rape kit, basically.
Oh,
And you go to
yeah,
a rape
those are
crisis center.
hours.
And I was
Yeah.
hysterical, telling them I wasn't raped, so they don't need to swab me. I didn't want to like, it's so, I mean,
It's
if
intrusive.
you're a girl,
Invasive.
you've been to the gyno and you
Yeah.
know how uncomfortable it is already. So
and
it's
you've
like,
just been through a lot that
yes.
day.
Yeah. And they're taking photos of you,
Oh,
which they bring up in fucking trial.
Wow.
So
No.
just pubes on the screen for everyone to see. Yeah, I remember being horrified.
Of course. It feels,
But-
like, very dehumanizing.
Yeah.
Even though they're trying to be helpful, I can
Yeah.
imagine that just feeling like so violating.
Yeah, I think like that's one thing that the system kind of is a little fucked, and I understand that it's just kind of like you need to ask the questions, you need to go to the hospital, you need to get the rape kit right away. But it's like, oh my God, these people, like, you have no idea what you can't even conceptualize what just happened to you.
Yeah.
right.
But you're just like, you got to go through it.
You're just like
Wow.
going through these motions.
Yeah.
But these are like huge things.
Huge
to
thing.
be
And it
asked
sounds
of
like-
at 15 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're a
You're a
child.
child.
And you asked to not do the rape kit and they didn't.
So I specifically did not want to get swabbed inside of me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they swabbed like just the outside area, because I was like, I didn't get raped, and I think they like I had DNA other places,
Right,
like
but
it bit
his-
me,
yeah.
my clothes. They take your clothes,
Wow.
and take photos of everything. Which also I once tried to get access to the photos, and you can't get access
Wow.
to the photos.
Really?
Yeah, because in moments of like, did this fucking happen? I'm like, let me see the photos. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see what's there.
And
Yeah.
they won't
And
give it
and
to
they
you?
won't
You
give it to you?
can't.
It's, like,
they're not.
closed?
Yeah. I mean, I would just like, you can't get them. Maybe I could if I tried harder, if I knew what to do. But
Wow.
like,
But the fact that
they're
it's
not
that
really like
hard
open.
to
Yeah.
even get access to photos of
They're
you
like me.
and your clothing from
Yeah.
like this really traumatic event
Yeah.
That's
is deeply
wild.
upsetting.
Yeah. They took my school uniform, not my school uniform, my
Your
like, softball
softball.
Yeah.
uniform. And yeah, and so after that, that's when I got home like really late
And
that
then-
night.
And then what? I mean, I know you didn't go to school the next day.
No, I
Yeah.
didn't go to school the next day. There were newscasts everywhere. But I was immediately, which I don't know whose idea this was, but like everyone wanted to visit me. So for the next 2 days, I was just bombarded with visits from people,
Oh, I think I was
home
one
or
of
at the
them.
hospital. At home.
which like I didn't think any, because I'm like, oh, you're just like, okay,
don't
it's
know.
fine. I'm fine. I'm
Right.
fine. Like, I don't know. I have not even fucking sat down to process what just
Right.
happened. So then people want to make sure you're okay, but you're also kind of like an animal in the zoo.
Right.
Like, people want to see, people want to know, people like it's catchy. That's why the news is there.
Right.
And so I just remember being like comforting everyone, like, oh, I'm fine, or like, you tell the story, whatever.
It's like making them feel okay about the situation.
Which kind of makes sense why you're like, I don't like making people feel uncomfortable of telling my story.
Yeah.
And even in that moment when you're like completely, you're brutally attacked, you're still like protecting other people, trying to make them feel better.
Yeah, well, even you just saying that right now, I'm like, whoa, like, okay, you don't need to shove those words in my face. I'm brutally attacked. I'm like,
I know, but you were.
Like, yeah, I know.
I had
It's
chills.
crazy.
Like, I remember getting that picture and like that. I mean, because like I love you and I care about you. And that was like so, I mean, it's so violating and it was so hard for me to see you in a state like that.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, there's so many other things that come from that. Being 15 years old at your school, which is supposed to be your safe place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for people even like hearing, like it was brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah. And also the school like sent a letter out to the whole student body basically saying how like it wasn't their fault after.
Wow.
Because like it was on campus, but it was after hours. So there were like things like that too.
So when you see a letter like that, like what comes up in your mind at like 15? Like you've just been attacked on campus. You've had to go through this whole process. You've broken bones.
Yeah.
You have to get a rape kit. Like eventually you're going to have to go to trial and testify against this person.
Yeah, which I did not know that.
And the school is like, it was after hours.
Yeah, I think I was really angry. Well, I remember at that time, just anger was like the first emotion. I was like would lash out at people.
Yeah.
Like any sort of thing, if someone like things that were like unrelated, if someone was like coming at me, I would like almost be like, well, I blah, blah, blah. Like I was driving a friend in a car and he was in the back of the pickup truck and we were like all joking around and I slammed on the brakes and he like his face hit it was dangerous. It was stupid things.
Yeah.
Stupid things. His face hit the like window. Yeah. And was like bleeding. Like I could have broken this dude's nose and we're all just like playing around and some other guy was like giving me shit about it and I was like, you don't think I know what it's like to get hit in the fucking face? And so it was like that, like lash out like that.
Yeah.
Which is like was unrelated, but it was around that time I was so angry and I don't think I understood. I just didn't understand like why, but then I also at the same time was like, I'm so glad that it was me. Because I can't imagine what my friends would have done if they were in that position.
Wow.
That's like a big statement to say like.
I know, and I heard actually someone else say that on a podcast yesterday.
Yeah. And
I was like, whoa, I've never heard anyone else verbalize the same thing that I had felt for so long of like, I know that I'm strong enough to handle this. So I'm glad that it was me and not someone else.
And do you feel like you knew that in that moment? Or
I think
you know that now, like looking back?
I knew that very early on. And I think that's why I kind of like latched on to this, like I have to do something with.
Yeah.
I'm a survivor, which ended up like can bite you in the ass because I ended up making it my identity, which I have like done some work to let go a little bit of.
Yeah.
But that was kind of like, why did this happen to me? Because I can do something with this.
So that's like you making meaning of it?
Yeah.
Like that's why this happened to me so that I could help other people.
Yeah, exactly. And then I like taught self-defense and talked at schools around LA and
you came to talk to my school.
Yeah. I like literally went to so many schools. It's crazy. Just like not go to school and go to other schools and talk.
I also really want to know do you remember what it was like the first time going back to school after the attack?
So I thought everyone would know, but like I actually too, I healed really fast, or like it wasn't obvious that much. Like the bruising went down. I wasn't really swollen. I remember like trying to dodge the media,
Yeah.
like literally feeling like a celebrity or
Yeah.
something. But I don't really remember the like going back. What I do remember is like months later, maybe at this point it's even a year, I remember one of the guys in my class, like at recess, he's like, "Oh, I heard they found the guy." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, they found the guy. It's on the news." And I was like pissed. Yeah. Why the fuck did I not know that? And like everyone else, like someone else is telling me my business basically.
Yeah.
So there's like a lot of that stuff where you're like, why is just like the media or like everyone else, I'm just some story.
Right.
Well, it's like this very public
Yeah.
event
Yeah.
that happened. But
And,
it's like
something
your life.
so private.
So
Yeah.
private and yet so public at the
Yeah.
same time.
Which then at the same time too, I had this like very public assault, but then 3 months after I was like, I don't like using the word molested because like I was 15, but like I was inappropriately touched by a family friend. And I had a counselor through the state for this, for the assault.
Yeah.
And I told her, not realizing she was a mandated reporter and could use it against me. And she she basically told the police. So I had the police taking me out of class for what they think people thought because I was sexually assaulted, but really was because like my family friend touched me and they're trying to get me to file a police report. And so like this was
school.
This was during school. They pulled me out of class.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And this was so like, while something very public was happening, there was also something very private happening that I didn't tell people. I think my close friends knew and like my family knew. But so that was like another layer that I also didn't really talk about until more recently.
I had no idea.
I had no
Yeah.
idea.
I mean, I knew recently, but I had no idea at the time and the timeline of that. And you also don't like using the word molested, but that's what it was.
happened?
I know it. Well, because for some reason I like associate that with like a little child.
I bet you
And
were.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you're like forced to grow up. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
You're like also
those
treated
3
as
months. I'm just thinking like,
yeah.
what a brutal time for
crazy.
you to like. I'm so curious how you were able to like begin trusting people again, or if that's still something that you're working on.
It's a good
these
question,
days.
honestly. I don't know if I really have the trust issue or like no, I don't think I like struggle with trust in that sense. I think because I had a lot of support otherwise. My parents believed me. Like first of all, it's easier. I don't want to say easier, but like it was a stranger. So there's not like the first one obviously was a stranger. So I had physical markings, like I was believed.
Yeah.
The other one, the family friend, like I also was believed.
Yeah.
I was very fortunate to have support. My friends were there. I think, I honestly just think I kind of like blocked it out.
Yeah.
I just kind of like kept going and I didn't really take time to sit down and process. And like, even though I was not forced, but like they give you like 10 sessions with the counselor.
Wow.
That's enough to solve all your issues.
And you're like, don't know. It's not like they couldn't get me to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it.
Sure.
So I was just like, let me just tell you what happened during my day. Hence why I told her about this thing.
Yeah.
And then I wish she would have said, like, I'm a mandated reporter.
No one
told you?
Oh my
No,
god.
I mean, she probably told me early on,
No,
but I
but
wish
in
she
that
would have been like,
moment?
no.
Oh.
I do not recall.
So she didn't in that moment say like, hey, you just shared something with me that I'm
You just got
mandated
pulled
to
out of
report.
class from a police officer.
Yeah.
That is so.
Which was also like, I would
Horrible.
regularly get pulled out because they would come with like what they called 6-packs, like they're photos of 6 mugshots, and you like narrow down if you recognize anyone. Also, right after, which I forgot to mention, you go to a sketch artist and you like basically look at a book of different features and narrow down features that are not the person.
Got it.
and then they like write a sketch or draw the sketch.
Was
and,
it accurate, do you think?
I mean, I don't know. Even people are like, wow, he looks so much like it. And I look at the sketch and I'm like, or I look at the guy and I'm like, dude, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
In trial, they said, do you see the man who did this to you in the room? And I had to answer honestly. I said, no. Like, I don't recognize him.
Yeah, because that wasn't at that point when you saw his face. That was not something you needed to register.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, how am I going to get out of this situation?
Yeah.
I just feel like that's so much pressure for anyone, but especially at 15 to be like, give me all the details. I need accuracy. Like, when this traumatic thing just happened.
Yeah. It's like,
you know, like, I think anyone would be hard pressed to be able to like recount something like detail by detail. But I just feel like when you're young and you're scared, it's like easy to not know.
Yeah.
And like when you're in fight or flight, like you're not picking up on all the details.
Yeah,
you're just
exactly.
figuring out how to get out of there.
Yeah, you're literally just trying to survive.
Yeah.
So I think, and that part of it too is just like you feel like you're failing, like that. Oh, I'm not even a good survivor because like I can't point him out in a room. I can't give them the answers that they want. And I still sometimes feel like that, like even when I do things like this, like, oh, I don't know how I felt in that moment, XYZ. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, like you should know these things. But I mean,
and like why? I mean, so it's like because you don't remember, is it like it didn't happen in the way you thought, or like why is it a problem that you don't remember certain things?
I think because then I feel like it didn't happen, period.
So it like feels like invalidating.
Yeah.
That it happened to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, because then I just start to think like, oh, I made it up.
And then you look at the pictures like, oh shit, I didn't.
Yeah, which I have like one photo that my like aunt took, just like scary.
So
when in the animal zoo, that's the picture you have
in the hospital in a gown.
Yeah,
I'm like wondering what else. Sorry, I'm just what else like grounds you in the reality of like this actually happens to me. So you have like the one photo from the hospital.
The one photo. Honestly, as wild as it sounds, it's like the triggers, like they do remind me. And I think I've just gotten better at believing myself. Like I didn't make this shit up. Like there's no way you could. And just I think like having a little bit more understanding and grace that like our memory does things so that we can survive. And I think also like teaching self-defense or even learning self-defense allowed me to kind of like take back my story. Speaking about it allowed me to take back what happened. But things like through that experience, I think it allowed me to kind of get grounded and like just kind of accept.
Yeah.
More recently, I think I've done a lot more processing and been able to like go, yep, this did happen. Doesn't need to be like who I am, my soul identity.
You've done a lot of like personal work to get to this point. And I'm curious of one thing you were saying was like, I feel like trust in yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that has changed, but you were saying like, okay, I can trust other people, but it's hard for you at times like trust yourself or like believe yourself because your memory escapes. So it's just curious if like you feel like that comes up now or in your relationships with others.
I definitely think that it's shifted in that I can feel more trusting of myself. I think through the work that I've done, through like I write a lot. I think also during the pandemic, kind of putting my stuff out there a little bit more, learning too about through self-defense, like fight or flight and like those processes, I think has made me more trusting of myself and more understanding of like what I was going through. And I think just continuing to like actually spend the time to process now has allowed me to be more trusting of the experience. I think there's still things that come up that I'm like, is my memory playing tricks on me or like, but for the most part, I do think it's shifted and that I've grown a lot. I mean, it's been 15 years.
Right. I know. It's like it's half your life.
Yeah.
Do you feel like your relationships have been impacted at all and like getting close to people and like getting intimate with others?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think early on too, I like felt like I had this, because it was so public, it happened on my school campus, everyone knew.
Yeah.
So I never had to tell anyone. And then I went to college
And no one knew.
and no one knows. Also, I like went to trial my spring break of freshman year and didn't tell anyone. Which like I always thought of myself as like an open book, like I'm like vulnerable, tell people everything, but I realized like I wasn't sharing things. Like I didn't know how to just like share without being prompted, you know.
Right.
I used to feel a lot, which I don't feel as much anymore, that I was like had a secret that I had to tell someone, or like I had this baggage. And I had a couple instances where I remember I went on a date with a guy from in high school, and I heard he told people he didn't want to mess with me.
Wow.
Because I was like damaged.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember that was like the first realization to me. I never thought that.
Yeah.
Until I heard someone else say that, and I was like, oh my God, people aren't going to want to be with me because I've had this huge thing happen. And then in college, I
hate that.
I hate it. Yeah.
I hate that.
And that took me a while to get over that. It's
Yeah.
like, that's on you. Like I'm fucking awesome because of what happened. I'm better for it.
Yeah.
And if that's a problem for you, like you're intimidated, like,
that's about you.
yeah, that's on you. Sorry.
Yeah, bye.
Sucks to suck. You should do some work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the
But
therapy.
I can imagine that being like so damaging to
Yeah.
your self-esteem, like especially given the attack on campus and then sexual assault and molestation by a close family friend, to then like have those things used against you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, so now I don't get to have normal, safe, trusting relationships.
Yeah. And I think that's always what I go back to too, is like I want to be normal. Like
Yeah.
what would have happened if this never happened? What would I have studied in college? Like what kind of person would I have been had I not been like kind of forced to grow up?
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I like
Do you have like when you ponder on those things, do you
Well,
have answers to those questions?
I recently read a journal. I used to write a lot when I was a kid too, and I read in a journal that I wrote that I had like, or I made like a mood board or something that I knew I always wanted to be a veterinarian when I was younger, but that ship sailed.
Yeah.
And then I had wrote that I wanted to be a therapist.
Oh, look
Wow.
at that.
Which I thought was funny because I'm a wellness coach now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I guess like I always wanted to be
Well, taking care of
helping-
others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but I don't know.
So it's interesting. It's like you're wondering who would I have been, but also you're seeing a piece of like who you are now
Yeah.
in yourself back then.
Yeah. And I'm actually really glad I wrote, because then I'll like read some of the things when I
Yeah.
was younger, and I've gone through a lot of like questions about who I am as a person. You like go through hard shit and you're like, wait, like I need a reality check. Like, who are you in your core?
Right.
And then I read things that I wrote as like a kid, and I'm like, oh, I'm literally the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My personality is
that.
still the same, and I'm like very grateful to have like uncovered those journals, which I literally wrote about Erica in one of them.
Oh,
Just, like, how
Wait,
about
what did
how-
she say? What did you say?
Just about how like I loved you so much, or like wanted to be you when I grew up or some shit.
I love that.
I remember when I was not at school, I was like, Emily, can you check my locker? You would like check my locker
Yeah.
for me.
Oh,
That's sweet.
That's so sweet.
So
I love
funny.
that you have a piece of yourself from back then
Yeah.
that you can like use to ground yourself now.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there are people in your life that like in addition to yourself that help ground you and like remind you of who you are.
I think honestly, my family and like close friends, people
Yeah.
who have like known me the whole time.
Yeah.
I think it is helpful to have the people that knew me before, you
Yeah, of
guys,
course.
my friends from high school, my family, and like just to see myself through their eyes, like I'm the same person.
Yeah.
I actually had this, it's literally unrelated, but I went to my friend's wedding last year, and she sat me at a table with like no one I knew, and I literally like had a panic attack.
Yeah.
And I had to like step outside, and I was like, why did she do this? Like, I want to be with all my friends. And I like had a conversation with myself, and I'm like, because she sees you as a person who can talk to anyone, because like that's who you are. You can do that. You just like maybe now are a little more anxious than you were before.
Yeah.
So I like literally had this whole conversation with myself and was like, oh, okay, like you can be that person. You are that person. That's why she sat you there.
Right.
Oh, yeah, a little pep talk.
Yeah.
I literally was like, bye, anxious Emily.
Yeah.
And my friends say bye to them.
See you later.
And I showed up and had a great time.
Wow.
But
I mean, that's like really resilient.
So
I mean,
resilient.
Yeah,
Like
I don't know.
honestly.
Okay, so I'm then, like you've alluded to the life coach, the self-defense. So you had this like traumatic experiences happen, and then you got into self-defense.
Mhm.
You went around to schools to share your story,
Yeah.
to then help teach self-defense.
Mhm.
And then now you're doing like, I mean, it's been like this journey.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit more about like the journey you've had?
Yeah. I think so. The self-defense stuff, I honestly like my dad actually found this guy teaching a free self-defense class at the park. And I took it with my stepmom. And then my dad got together a group of like 10 girls from my high school and had him teach us like a couple week course.
Your dad did that?
Yeah, I
I
know.
love that.
I know.
That your dad did that.
It was like pretty cute.
Yeah, he just like wanted to surround you with support
Yeah.
and like not make you feel other, but
Yeah.
like also teach really valuable skills.
Well, and it's so funny for a guy who like doesn't really, we don't like talk like emotionally.
Yeah.
So like when I look back and I'm like, oh,
That was like
He was-
his
That was
way.
his
Yeah.
way, his tangible way of
Yeah.
like helping.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then like, and so that doing that process, I think I had, again, like my story was just kind of like, it's like one of those like news catchy stories. So the instructor just like asked me if I wanted to help or do demonstrations with him at
Yeah.
high schools. And so I started doing that. And we did like taught on the news and like went to different high schools, and I've got to do really cool things. And I'm
Yeah.
actually so grateful for the experience because I got to like take back my story and
Yeah.
also not be so afraid of it.
Yeah.
Like I'm not like hiding behind the
Right, there's
secret.
the shame of it.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It's like you're taking ownership of what
Yeah.
happened to you and like what you can do.
Which can feel
Yeah.
really empowering, which I know.
Yeah.
Which is and this also happened all early in, like I was still in high school.
Right.
Right. And that's why I wanted to check in. You said during the pandemic, you sort of like started to put yourself out there. I
Mhm.
want to know what does that mean that you put yourself out there and what sort of prompted it?
So I, like after college, took a break from that part of my life, from like wanting to do something like career wise that
Yeah.
had to do with it. And then like before the pandemic, I just kind of went to this self-defense camp and met a woman who started this company called Impact Personal Safety. It's like huge. She like taught on Oprah, like
Wow.
was very big in like maybe the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
Ended up starting working with her, was going to be an instructor. And I think, I don't know what happened. The pandemic hit and I was like, I've always liked writing. I wanted to like put my stuff out there. And people who have followed me on social media, I mean, like friends have always been like very supportive and encouraging.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to lean into this and I'm going to write. And it's funny because I was also in like a very toxic relationship at that time. And so it was a very hard experience to like be trying to like write about this, but also there's aspects that you're dealing with still in an unhealthy relationship that I ultimately was like, I need to take a step back.
Take a step back from the writing or from the relationship?
From both.
Okay.
From the writing was the first thing to go, and then the relationship, and after and through like doing therapy after my relationship, my therapist said to me, what if you let go of survivor in your identity. And I remember being like, how could I literally do that? Like, that's a crazy request. And I don't know what the fuck happened, but I like simmered on it, and I was like, what if I just like for a second like didn't have that be my sole identity and the reason I did like did everything that I did. So I decided to pull out of self-defense and just like kind of take a step back and find who I was, like find my identity, which is when I just rediscovered my like childhood journals. And now I'm like trying to get back into just kind of speaking out more, because what I like to do, what I've always liked to do, and what I've enjoyed when I did demonstrations is to share about things that people are wondering, or like things that people feel like they're alone in experiencing. And so that's why I like doing these sort of things. And
I feel like in a lot of ways too. So it like, obviously this traumatic event took over your life. It became so much of your identity. And then you had to really let go of it completely. And I feel like now you've been able to really integrate it. Because you're using the experience that happened to you in a way, but it's not your whole identity. Right? Like you got into wellness coaching and fitness coaching. And I know that there's, just from knowing you, I know that there's a part of you that wants to, you could help people who have gone through similar things within your wellness coaching, but it's not taking over everything.
I think it was like through my own healing and finding like what grounds me, like just like the daily things I can do to help me feel grounded. That is what inspired me to get into wellness coaching and like even fitness. A part of it is just like, and we used to say it in self-defense too, it's like helping someone uncover that they've had the things in them the whole time. Like in fitness, it's like, you're strong. You don't like, you've had it in you the whole time. I'm not the one like making you stronger. Like that's all you.
Very empowering.
And in wellness coaching, it's like, how can we help you create better habits so that you feel a little bit better going through your days, a little bit more grounded, a little less anxious, a little bit more, I don't know, processed.
I'm sure the listeners are wondering, like, what are some of these habits and things that you've put into place to help move through your day more easily and with less anxiety?
I think, well, for starters, meditation has helped tremendously. And I was so against meditating early on because how can I sit still for 10 minutes? And I had this idea that like I'm an overthinker. So how am I supposed to not think for X amount of time? But it's really not about not thinking. It's about noticing when you're like spiraling or thinking in circles and regrounding yourself and focusing on the present. And it's been like such a helpful tool in everyday life, especially for someone who is anxious, to be able to like shorten that gap between like a spiraled thinking and action. So meditation has been huge. And then I've just leaned into like journaling. I prioritize my health, my fitness. And I think I'm just a little bit more mindful of the things I put in my body. Like I value sleep. I don't drink as much. I just started setting better boundaries for my
which is like
days.
So amazing.
So amazing.
And I know that you're helping others and you're in LA and can you tell us like about the stuff you're doing now and where people can find you?
Well, you can find me on social media, I guess. But
if someone wants to train with you or do wellness coaching with you.
I mean, like, can DM me on Instagram. Like, great. I have a blog, thepursuitofearlessness.com, where I like will be posting more, writing more, just like my stream of consciousness thinking. And we can train, we can do wellness coaching. I literally like to think of myself as an open book. So, always down to like just have conversations with people and connect.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. And just one last thing is I want to know, like, what would you Emily now, tell your younger self?
In the thick of it, you know, like in those dark moments, what would Emily now want Emily then to know?
It's funny because I like wrote yesterday, like, and I was like, oh, about kind of grief and this and sexual assault and how I like grieve for that 15-year-old girl who was like forced to grow up.
Yeah.
But I think like what I would tell her is like, I believe you and I love you, honestly. Like you have my support. Like you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that you're allowed to feel the way that you feel regardless. I think it's very easy to compare yourself and like your situation to other people, and you as a way to like minimize your feelings and your experience. And I did that a lot.
Yeah.
And so I think just like letting her know that everything she's feeling, even though she had no fucking idea what she was feeling, that she's allowed to have all of those feelings and thoughts. And just because, and yeah, it doesn't matter what the next person did, or that didn't make sense, but
no, I know.
That's sweet. That's very like a lot of compassion.
So much compassion for your 15-year-old Emily self.
Yeah.
Well,
I would say so.
Thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank
Like,
you. Sharing.
and for being so vulnerable and sharing, you know, like really deep pieces of who you are and things that have shaped you. And I just love the story of like, I just want to commend you, because I think therapists all the time are going to challenge you and say like, or I mean, good ones are going to say, you know, like, what if survivor wasn't part of your identity? And it would have been really easy to be like, nah.
Yeah.
But you like dug in.
Yeah.
And you wanted to figure out like, so, and what else is there to me? Like, I'm multi-layered, and I just love that you've like leaned into that, and it's led you down this path of like helping other people, which it sounds like you were always destined to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's honestly kind of crazy because like what makes you go deeper? You just do it. I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the wild part.
It is.
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
We love you.
I love you guys.
Therapist take. Okay, so what are some of your thoughts, Jordy, after the Emily episode?
I think I said this at the end of the episode, but I just was so impressed with her for being so willing to like do really, really hard work. You know, like to have something happen to you. She says it a few times in the episode too, like she had to grow up really fast and to have this like defining thing happen to you. And then have someone challenge you and say like, and who are you outside of this?
Yeah.
Like that's really scary. And so I was just so impressed that she was willing to do that work and like explore the other parts of her that maybe like she didn't get a chance to explore when she was like in the stage of exploring because of all the things that happened to her. So I was just really impressed by like her willingness to just dig in. And I think that that just says a lot about the kind of like coach that she's going to be for other people, because she's going to like make them feel safe and also like challenge them and encourage them to dig deep and do the hard work.
Yeah. And when you're saying like do the hard work, I mean, without going into and knowing the work that Emily did, if anyone who's watching this is curious about what kind of therapy would someone might want to explore if they experienced a sexual assault, there's EMDR, which is really helpful, and cognitive processing therapy, which is for sexual assault survivors. And those are two therapies that someone could do even years after an assault.
It's essentially like reprocessing the memories and sort of trying to move them out of this place where you feel like they're happening in real time, and like Emily talks about triggers and things like that, you know, trying to like just reduce some of those symptoms,
right?
And integrate the memories into who you are now.
Yeah. So that, you know, when something like that happens, it can shake someone's worldview, and there are therapies out there that can really help people figure out how to move in the world without having this trauma really define them.
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like the main like theme that I sort of walked away feeling from Emily was just like post-traumatic growth.
Yes.
Like that was the takeaway for me. I was like, she went through so much, and and it was like a lot, like she said she was assaulted in sophomore year and she didn't go to trial until freshman year of college. So this was like a very long, drawn out thing that was like a huge part of her life. And to just see how far she's come and how open-minded she is and how trusting she is and trusting of herself, I think it just shows so much growth that can come from going through something traumatic.
Yeah. So that was really inspiring to be a part of. And that's our therapist take.
And let us know if you have any questions for Emily. Any other thoughts that you're wondering. You can email us at griefstreetpodcast@gmail.com. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to Grief Street. We put out new episodes every Monday. If you'd like to support us, give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to find the video version of our episodes. Please subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts and give us a 5-star review. We would love to hear from you and get some feedback. If you'd like to contact us, please email griefstreetpodcast@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 508-474-3378. That's 508-GRIEFST. Our theme song is Hepcat Jive, courtesy of purpleplanet.com. We'll see you next time.